Hi, it's Penny here, and today we're going to be talking about the top 5 science fiction books that I read in 2020. Now, a couple of these did make it to my 2020 book battle, where I took my favorite book from each month and battled them against each other. But like with my fantasy books, I do also have a few other favorite science fiction books from the year that I wanted an excuse to talk about. So here's the excuse. Firstly, at number 5, we have Ascender Volume 2, The Dead Sea by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. So this is a graphic novel series, and it is a spin-off series from the Descender graphic novel series, which I read in 2020. I also read the first volume of this series, The Haunted Galaxy, in 2020. In Descender, we've got humans spread out through space, but then one day these giant robots appear and kill a bunch of the humans. The humans in retaliation start culling all the robots that they use for different things, and so we're following several humans, but primarily we're following this companion robot called Tim-21, who has been separated from his human family, and he's trying to track them down. Honestly, the robots in this series are my absolute favorite. Driller will always have my heart, and I love him so much. In the second series, Ascender, we're kind of following on from the fallout of Descender. We've got the characters all in a very bad situation, and in this one we're also getting some magic incorporated into the story, which I really like. Volume 3 is going to be called The Digital Mage, and right this second it's waiting for me at the library. Once I finish filming this, I'm going to go pick it up, and I'm super excited to continue the series. Then at number 4, we have Arrival by Ted Chiang, or actually, this is a short story anthology called Story of Your Life and Others, but one of the short stories from this book was the inspiration for the movie Arrival. I still need to watch that movie. I don't know why I haven't, because I really enjoyed the short story, and I really don't understand how they would have made that into a movie. So I need to watch it to try and see. But basically, each one of these short stories has a really interesting science fiction concept. The themes that they are exploring are really interesting. I already talked about a lot of the different short stories in this book in my book battle, so I feel like I shouldn't get into it, but also, if you don't know what the short stories are about, how will you know if you like it? I guess I would say, so the first short story is one where they have built this pyramid to try and get into heaven. So we're following some miners going up this staircase around this pyramid until they get to the heaven, which they've discovered is solid, and so they're mining through to get into heaven, and we see what they find there. The last story is about this technology that basically blinds you from beauty, so you can no longer tell whether people are beautiful or not, which stops you from being prejudiced against ugly people. It's basically like a documentary or a series of interviews talking with different people who've had different experiences with this technology and have different opinions about whether it should be made mandatory at this college. And in between that, there's a whole bunch of really interesting stories that just really make you think about things in different ways. I was talking about science fiction books with some of my colleagues the other day, and they were saying the science fiction books they want are ones that essentially change the way that you look at life, and I think this book counts for that. I don't often like short story anthologies because I find you like some short stories better than others, but in this one, honestly, I liked every single story. Some of them were quite taxing on the brain, but it was 100% worth it, and I definitely recommend this one. I mean, this is my top 5, so obviously I recommend all of these. Then at number 3, we have The Lady Astronaut of Mars. So that is a short story that preceded the Lady Astronaut series, and I also in 2020 read The Calculating Stars and The Faded Sky, and they both also almost made it into this list, so I'm gonna include them at this point in the story. The Lady Astronaut of Mars is actually set well in the future of this main series, when she's already done a bunch of space travel and she's deciding whether to go on a really long space trip and have to leave her husband behind when his health is failing. And she knows that it's very likely that by the time she comes back, he won't be around anymore. The reason this is so high is that it's very uncommon to find a book that really looks at what it's like to be an older person and having to make these kind of really difficult decisions, as well as having to deal with the fact that your body is starting to wear down and the people around you have similar problems. It was really heartbreaking, even though it was super short. And the main series also touches on some really interesting themes. Basically, at the beginning of the series, a meteor hits the Earth, meaning that very soon Earth will no longer be habitable. So that accelerates the space program and trying to work out how to move people off the Earth. However, since it's set back in the 50s, they don't really want to involve women and people of color in this race to space, and we're following our main character as she fights against that and also realizes what privileges she does have. And of course, at the same time, they're figuring out how to travel to space. So in the first one, they go to the moon earlier than we did in real life, and then in the second one, they're traveling to Mars. And I think there's at least another 2 books in the series, and one of them has already been released, and I still haven't gotten to it. I don't know why, but I really need to hurry up because it's definitely a series I want to continue. Then at number 2, we have a book that did very well in my 2020 book battle, and that is This Is How You Lose the Time War. And in fact, same with what happened with my top fantasy books. This has exactly the same rating as the book at number 1. It's just Google Sheets that has decided the order. And as well, the book that's at number 1 was a reread. So this is the best new science fiction book that I read in 2020. This is a really beautiful story. It's really short, but it's about these 2 time travel agents, Blue and Red, and they are fighting for opposing factions to try and change the timelines so that more of the timelines are ones where their faction got what they wanted. One is very technology based and the other one is more organic and plant based. And these 2 time travel agents start writing letters to each other in very creative ways. Initially to taunt each other, but eventually they end up building a relationship, and it was just really beautiful. It is very abstract, so it's not like concrete science fiction, but I think it's science fiction more than fantasy just because it has one that's time travel element, but also it's really looking at possibilities, and I think that's something that science fiction focuses on. So this is really beautiful. It's super short. I think you should read it just to see if you like it, because I really loved it and I want everyone to read it. It was pretty hyped this year, so I think a lot of people have probably read it, but if you haven't, you should think about it. So then number 1 is actually The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, and Catching Fire was pretty high on this list too. I don't know where Mockingjay is on the list. I think it was a lot lower, but I reread the Hunger Games trilogy via audiobook this year, and I'm really sad because just after I did that, I found out that there was a new anniversary edition of the audiobooks that have been put out, being narrated by Tatiana Maslany, which is the actress from Orphan Black. I really love Orphan Black and I really love her, so I almost feel like I'm going to need to do another reread of this series just so that I can listen to those audiobooks. And I wasn't sure going into this reread whether I would still enjoy this series. It was a long time since I had first read it, and also while a lot of people who love this series read it when they were teens, I read it when my younger sister was a teen and I was in my 20s. So I didn't have that same nostalgic connection to it, but rereading it, I still thought it was a pretty solid story and I had to rate it pretty highly. If you don't know what the Hunger Games series is about, we're following this girl named Katniss who lives in District 12. Each year the Capitol makes each district choose a male and a female competitor for the Hunger Games, where basically these children are stuck in this arena and they have to fight to the death. It's pretty brutal in some parts, although probably not as brutal as some other books. It is still targeted at the YA audience. But overall, it's a pretty good story about overcoming oppression while still dealing with the trauma of those experiences. Anyway, I enjoyed it, and I probably will reread it again in the future. So those are my top 5 science fiction books that I read in 2020. If you have read any of them, I would love to hear what you thought about them down in the comments, or whether you think there's any other science fiction books that I might particularly enjoy that I should be picking up, because I suspect that one of my 2021 goals is going to be to read more science fiction. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.